Hi, this is Andy from McGyver's Garden, and welcome back. Sorry we had about a week's delay here. We were dealing with a medical issue with one of our relatives, but we're trying to get caught up here. Today we're going to talk about a couple things. First off, I brought in some of my starts from my seed starter that need to be hardened off and made ready to go out in the garden. One thing I do want to show you on those seeds that you've got too many of, like we put 2 seeds in this one. What you want to do before you put it out in the seeds or out in the hardening off area is to eliminate all but your very best plant. Now you notice I didn't pull it out by the root. That would tend to damage the roots of the plants that are existing there. We've got a few plants here. We've got a Cosmo that's going out. We've got a broccoli which is going out. This is called a Gaillardia. You may know it as a blanket flower. Also, we've got a red salvia. This is one that's kind of a fun one. This is a geranium that I took a start from. My wife likes this particular color, and I took a start from it. Just took a cutting and potted it down in the seed starter during the winter, so you can use the seed starter even in the middle of winter, and put some capillary matting to it, and you can see that it's doing just great and ready to go out. We won't put that one out for a few more weeks yet, but I just thought you might want to see it. Anyway, to harden these off, the easiest thing to do is just take the whatever you're using, a tray or a flat, and one of these cheap $1 buckets of water used for dishwashing, but you can get them at the local dollar store. And you can just take the whole thing and set it out on a table out in the yard. What you want to do to harden them off is you're hardening them off for both heat and cold. They haven't had direct sunlight yet, so what you're going to want to do is give them about 1 hour of sunlight, and then if it's not going to be too cold, you're not going to get frost at night, go ahead and leave them out overnight. Next day you want to put them out for 2 hours. The day after that you can put them out for 4 hours, but you want to get them gradually used to the heat. Once they get up to 8 hours heat, they're ready to plant in the garden. Okay, now, let's get these out of the way. What happens when you put everything out in the garden, thinking that you've put it out late enough so you shouldn't have a fall frost, and suddenly you get a weather report saying you're going to get a hard frost? What do? Okay, I'm sure you've seen some of these different things. You can put stuff out under plastic, you're told, and it'll protect it from frost a little bit. Or you can put them under those paper caps, or you can put them out under a blanket, or they've got what's called a wall of water or water teepee. So which ones work and which ones don't? I'll tell you what. I'll tell you first the ones that don't work, at least not for more than a degree or two. Any of your little paper cones, those will only buy you about a degree or two. That's not much. Putting things under plastic, many times it's colder under the plastic than it is outside. I actually built a PVC frame and plastic, and I had 300 plants out there that looked gorgeous. They looked like they were nursery quality. Next night we had a hard frost, and I went out there and everything was frozen solid. By noon that next day, everything looked like there'd been a fire gone through there. They were all black. I was devastated. And so I decided I needed to start looking and see what worked. Okay? As far as if you're putting something over it, a blanket works better than plastic does. But let me tell you something here. I'm sure you've seen these water teepees or wall of water and probably said, do they work and why? If you ask the gardeners at the nurseries, what they'll usually tell you is that water will absorb heat from the sun and then radiate it back into the plant at night. And that's partially true, but that's not the real reason that these things work so well. They claim that you can buy anywhere from 2 weeks to 8 weeks extra by using these things. When they first came out, they said 2 weeks. Now they're saying 6 to 8 weeks. I'm going to put a caveat on that a little bit, but I'll tell you why. Plants freeze at different temperatures, depending on which plant you're working with. If you're working with a pumpkin, it doesn't even need to freeze to get frost burned. It'll frost burn at about 38 degrees, okay? However, tomato doesn't freeze until it's 29 degrees. So that's where these things come in really handy. Water's kind of fun stuff. Everybody knows that if you take water, put it in a pan and raise it to boiling temperature. The temperature in that pan is going to go up, 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 up until it hits 212 degrees, which is boiling. And then the temperature is going to stay right there until the water's boiled out. Okay, that's why you can boil eggs without having to worry about it getting burned. You don't have to sit and watch them. The yolk may get a little dark, but it's not going to burn because it won't go above 212 degrees. But what most people don't know is when water temperature is coming down, it does the same thing. It comes down, 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 down until it hits 32 degrees or freezing. And it'll stay level until that whole, in this case, the whole tube or whole surrounding of it is a block of ice. Well, what's that do to the area inside there? If you've got a tomato in there, and tomatoes don't freeze till 29 degrees, the lowest it's going to get is 32 degrees until that whole thing's a block of ice. And usually that's going to be long after the sun comes up and it starts warming up again. So the tomatoes will never freeze unless you get temperatures down in the teens to where it will freeze this whole thing at night. The disadvantage to these is they're a little hard to set up. What they suggest you do is start with a bucket. Then put it around it, and then go through and either with a hose or with a pitcher fill up each one of these tubes. Okay? You can see with a pitcher that can be a little time consuming. And then once you're done filling it up, then you can pull the bucket out and everything works fine. Only problem is, now that you've got that, you've got to try and plant the plant down in here. An easier way to do it is to cut the bottom out of your bucket first. That way you can set it up. You can put your plant in, put your bucket around the plant, then put the wall of water up, okay? Well, I'm going to show you another trick where you won't even need these to get the same or better effect. I ran into a situation where I was going on vacation to California, and we planted out after all normal frost dates were done, and we were going to be gone for just over a week. Well, the night that we were packing, we heard there was going to be a freak cold snap coming in. It was going to go down to a hard frost. And I had 6 tomato plants out in the yard. I went to get my water teepees or wall of water and found out another disadvantage to them. If you've used them for a couple of years, they tend to crack. They tend to leak. And then they don't hold up and they'll fall over and damage your plants. Mine were several years old. I hadn't used them in a while. They all had splits in them. What to do? You can't just run down to Walmart and buy them. You can order them from Walmart, but you can't buy them there. Same's true with the big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's. You can order them, but you can't buy them. Buy them right there. What to do? I was getting ready to pack up and leave. Well, I remembered my wife had put away several pop bottles with water storage for our 72-hour kits and for an emergency kit. So I grabbed several of these bottles. They were already filled with water, and I thought now would be a good time to test this. And I put 6 of these around each of my tomato plants. Went ahead and went on vacation. Came back, first thing I did was check the tomato plants. They all looked great. Wasn't a problem with them. I thought, well, maybe it didn't get as cold as I thought it was going to get. Or maybe this worked. I don't know. I was in the process of taking all these bottles away from it, from the 6 tomato plants I had. And at the time I had a fence that was about 5 foot high, solid, and then the next 2 feet it was lattice. so neighbors walking by could actually look in. And I had a neighbor walking by at the time, and he looked in and he says, "What the devil are you doing with all those pop bottles?" And then he looked at my tomatoes and he said, "How come your tomatoes didn't fry like everybody else's?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, we had 2 nights of hard frost and everybody's tomatoes froze and they all look like a fire had gone through. And yours look perfect. Did you just plant those?" "No, I left them for the week." But the answer to your question, yeah. Those pop bottles full of water kept those plants plenty warm on both those cold nights. So that's one of those areas where if you want to use the water teepees, that's fine. They work well. They're a little prettier. If you don't have those, but you do have either the pop bottles or the square juice bottles, those work every bit as well. I've got some peas out with these around them. I can stack them like bricks, and it works out pretty good. But all in all, that's what we're doing. And at this point, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something interesting. And next week we're going to try and see what we can do about actually showing you how to set up a garden from scratch. Just a simple little salsa garden. And thank you for watching, and may all your weeds be wildflowers.